Welcome to Laptop Radio. Today's topic is aviation industry, and we have Gary Martin with us. He is an aviation training and operations manager, and he is freelancing right now. Hello, Gary. How are you?
Hello, Michelle. Lovely to hear from you again. It's been a
Yeah.
long time, been a couple of years.
Yeah, that was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Did you enjoy it? Did you? All the way in Dubai?
Yes, flying to Dubai was an experience. The Emirates airplane was beautiful.
Yeah, they did have some good airplanes. They still have some very good aircraft. Yeah, just unfortunately due to COVID at the moment, quite a few of them are grounded. But we did have a very successful HAVSEC Global Symposium. And you spoke about something that I completely knew nothing about, which was, I'm sure some of your listeners have more knowledge than me, which was cryptocurrency and how we can use it within aviation. And it just completely blew the whole audience away. So thanks for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, my topic was how to use blockchain to enhance aviation security. So I spoke a
Yeah,
little bit about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and how we can use those technologies to make airports and airplanes safer.
that's right. I remember it very well. I still have a copy of it, so don't tell anyone.
For Gary, what is your story?
Well, my story is it goes back to really an incident that happened in 1988, which seems that long ago, really. But it was the Lockerbie incident, which some of your listeners may know a little bit about. And it happened on an aircraft traveling from London Heathrow over to JFK. And it exploded with a bomb in the cargo hold. And that was in 1988. And it exploded over a small town in Scotland called Lockerbie. And it really did grasp my interest, so much so that I saw a job opportunity at Glasgow Airport in 1990, and Glasgow Airport's in Scotland, and I applied for it. I was successful, and ever since then, 31 years later, I still very much have a buzz for aviation that's taking me Glasgow Airport through the attack that happened to Glasgow Airport in 2007. I then went on to Baghdad in Iraq, where I became the terminal manager for Baghdad International Airport during obviously 2008 was, during very much Iraqi freedom, all, with the US bases surrounding the airport. A couple of years doing that, I then got the opportunity to go to Kabul in Afghanistan, where I was the terminal manager at Kabul International Airport. And then I kind of one day I wanted to give my knowledge to people, so I got into the training side of it, and latterly that training side of it has taken me to Dubai, where I've spent the last 6 years working for Emirates Airline as a training specialist. I'm currently in between jobs at the moment, and I've got a few things on the horizon, so hopefully we'll be able to add to my career in the up and coming months.
Let's have some stories, Gary. So what happened in 2007 for Glasgow?
2007, yeah, well, wow. Two doctors who were working in a local hospital
Mhm.
had a plan. The initial plan was to explode a bomb outside a nightclub down in London, Tiger nightclub, which failed. So they kind of added to their plan a little bit, where they drove around in the west of Scotland and they came up with a plan to drive a vehicle into the front of the airport building at Glasgow. And in their Jeep Cherokee were several gas canisters, and they all doused themselves in petrol. They never quite got into the airport building due to their angle of attack. And obviously, myself and other members of the public and emergency response acted on it. And unfortunately, my picture appeared on many newspapers around the world. And if you Google me, you can see my rather strange stances as things are burning like vehicles behind me. So that's my 15 minutes of fame.
That's exciting.
Honestly, Google some of my pictures and you'll see me. You'll recognize me, obviously, Michelle, because you know me. But yeah, some weird and wonderful ones out there.
How do you feel?
Yeah, around June the 30th every year,
Mhm.
it always appears in newspapers, or when I go to, obviously, I attend a lot of aviation conferences as well.
Mhm.
And aviation is a kind of industry where not a lot of things have happened that are major incidents. So they tend to reuse the same incidents like Lockerbie, Glasgow airport attack, 9/11, So they tend to kind of regurgitate my picture. And if I'm always in the audience with some of my colleagues, they always text me or WhatsApp me and say, "Is that your bald head up on the screen again?" So yeah, that always gets a chuckle from the audience, especially when I'm sitting there. So I've started kind of doing my own webinars and talks on it, because the incident itself, there was a lot of lessons to be learned. We got the airport back up and running in less than 24 hours, and we all got a special badge from the then managing director, a gentleman by the name of Gordon Dewar. And the badge simply said 23:59 on it, because it was exactly 23 hours and 59 minutes after the attack that we had that airport terminal back up and operational and accepting passengers for flights, which is a phenomenal move on the part of everyone involved to get that airport operational again within 24 hours of a terrorist attack.
Wow. And how does that compare to Baghdad airport?
Yeah, Baghdad was certainly a different kettle of fish. I think some of the funnier moments, and don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The Iraqi people were like sponges. They just wanted to learn. You know, we could not give them enough training courses, telling them about how to search properly, use X-ray machines. They just wanted to learn. They just wanted to make their country better. But I did have a smile to myself when I thought you'd ask about some weird and wonderful stuff that had happened. And it was an election day back in 2010. And I was walking about the terminal building with a hard hat on. I was walking around with a sidearm and a bulletproof vest. And we had incoming 32 rockets fired by the insurgents into Baghdad airport that day. And I just thought to myself, wow, this is so surreal. So yeah, that was one of the stories. But I then moved on, and when I talk about the people from the Iraqis themselves, when I went to Kabul in Afghanistan, it was exactly the same. Just absolute wanting to know everything. They could not get enough information. Such a very intelligent race of people. We put actually four of them. We put through a diploma which was connected to Emirates Airline with Edith Cowan University. And I'm still a tutor for Edith Cowan University. And we put four of our senior Afghans who still work at the airport in Kabul and also with the ministry in Afghanistan as well. And they're helping build their country's aviation industry. And it was all part of us going in there with a plan to train these people up to get them to the best that we could possibly get them to.
Wow.
Yeah, that was Afghanistan. That was in Kabul. I spent a couple of years as the operations manager for the terminal. And then I got into training, and I was responsible for 4 airports in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
So I would go around. Yeah, we're in really far-flung places, some near the border with China, etc. And it was really difficult to get to. And basically the only way that they could get was via air. So it was a very good link for these places to be connected to, obviously Kabul, and then ultimately other places. Like we started flying to places like India, China, and obviously Dubai as well.
I know that you were at Emirates. How was your experience there?
Fantastic. I had 6 tremendous years training cabin crew. I was kind of one of the strange ones. I came from a non-airline background. I was airport background. And I ended up training cabin crew and pilots on aviation security. And up until the COVID-19 impact, we had 22,000 cabin crew and 4,500 pilots. And every single one of them had to come through their recurrent training every year. So we just had class sizes of 20 plus cabin crew from all walks of life. We had lawyers, doctors who went through university, got their degrees, their PhDs, whatever, and then just decided to go and see a bit of the world. So they joined up and, in my opinion, joined the best airline in the world. The training that we gave them was second to none, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. But all good things come to an end. I got involved in other things like the symposium which you attended. I think probably because of my connections in the aviation industry.
That was amazing. The content was amazing, the dinner was amazing, and I almost felt like I was in some kind of like 007 when I was there. I was
Yeah,
just like, "Oh my gosh, this is just so interesting." We have the drugs administration, we have live training, like they were sniffing
yeah,
the luggages with
the bag. So yeah, on this
yeah,
on
with
the
the
stage.
bags on
Yeah,
stage. That was
yeah,
amazing. And then the
yeah.
sex trafficking that you spoke about,
Hmm.
how you know, just and
We,
I notice it more too when I fly after.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the whole point of that symposium, is it's to showcase that it's not just X-ray machines, it's not just metal detectors. There's
Mhm,
all these other layers that go into securing that aircraft, like the dog detection. These dogs are trained
mhm,
to sniff out explosives, narcotic. We have machines that can detect a nanogram of explosive, which a
mhm,
nanogram is like a thousandth of a pinhead, and
yep,
these machines can detect that. We've got the best X-ray machines. We've got behavioural detection. We have passport scanners looking for false passports. I was involved in an e-learning to develop an e-learning for cabin crew,
mhm,
which will help in them spotting a potential human trafficker
mhm,
or a drug mule. A colleague of mine, Alex, we were involved heavily in developing that, and now it's mandatory
mhm,
for every single one of our crew to go through that every year.
mhm.
So things like that, people from the outside, and that's the thing about aviation security. It's many, many layers. It's not just one, and it's not all technology based either. There are many layers that go into securing that aircraft ultimately at 38,000 feet.
Yeah, and then remember there were people who steal from our luggages. When you're in the airplane, your bag in overhead, people can take money and kind of follow you around, and it was so interesting. I love that
Yeah.
conference. Love.
And that's why we trained our crew up on that, to make the passenger feel even safer, because we noticed that crime was in the increase, not just for Emirates, for other airlines around the world as well.
Mhm,
So we took the initiative to do something about it and train our crew to
mhm,
that next level to potentially spot those crimes before they happen.
mhm. How about COVID? How is it impacting the
Oh,
aviation
wow.
industry?
Yeah. COVID, as you probably know, because you're doing things like this and doing webinars, and where you used to fly to Dubai and do live on the stage. And yeah, it's impacted big time. I was doing some research just recently for a paper, and there's something like nearly 5 million jobs
Wow.
worldwide
Mhm,
will be lost due to COVID in the airline industry.
mhm,
That's phenomenal. I come from a country, Scotland, where the population is just below 5 million.
mhm.
So that's every single person in my country has lost their job. We've seen an 80% decrease in flight movements around the world. 80%. On the other hand, we have also had the things where the environment has gotten better due to less cars, less aircraft in the air. So I get the double sided argument of those things.
Mhm,
But I also feel that the economic impact has been absolutely huge due to COVID, and especially to the airline industry. Yes,
mhm,
other industries are suffering, like here in the UK, bars and cafes and stuff, they're closed at the moment because we are kind of in a lock. But even then, the airports are closed. My nearest airport is the airport that I used to work in, Glasgow Airport.
mhm.
And sometimes the last flight is 10 o'clock in the morning. That's not good for an airport to have the last flight at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
COVID has also brought other things like smuggling, with a lot of increase of smuggling of narcotics,
Oh, wow.
where yeah, where they're using the whole transportation of the PPE, of the
Mhm,
vaccine, to utilize that for smuggling narcotics. So there's been a major increase in things like that as well. So the aviation industry has been impacted severely. What was the one stat that I was going to share with you? I think it's 58% of all tourists around the world
mhm,
arrive by air.
mhm,
So that when that's being impacted like that, that's a big economic impact worldwide as well.
mhm. Wow. What are some of the trends that you're seeing, whether it's the airport or the airplane, in terms of training and security? What do
Yeah,
you think will change?
good question. I think going back to the industry first,
Mhm,
I think one of the big things that we will see is there'll be a lot more meetings via Zoom.
mhm,
There'll be a lot more conferences, for instance,
mhm,
via platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, to mention a few. I think that day of jumping on an aircraft to meet in the morning and discuss,
mhm,
I think we'll see less and less of that. So that will have an impact on the aviation industry.
mhm,
Things like our conference, Emirates is having their big AvSec symposium in September, October this year. We have it there every 2 years. I'm not involved in it. I'm not with Emirates now, but I think from a personal perspective, I think I could see that being very difficult to try and get people to come to Dubai
mhm.
to physically sit in the conference like you did and see it live. And
Yeah.
I think they need to look at other technologies such as streaming it live on YouTube and stuff like that to increase. But then you're losing out on revenue. You're losing out on people coming to Dubai and spending money.
Mhm,
And that's not just Dubai. That's happening everywhere with every industry who conducts big seminars, pop concerts, all of that kind of thing. I think the training has evolved. I saw it firsthand where we utilized webinars because we had to, inform our crew of particular changes, conduct training with them, but we couldn't get them live in the classroom. So we went to technology. We used Microsoft Teams quite a lot. And I think what that has shown us that you don't physically need the student in the classroom. There are other ways of teaching a human being, especially adults. And I
mhm,
think we'll see more and more of that. I think we'll see a lot more of virtual training
mhm,
coming on board. I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn, and I see a lot of people advertising virtual courses that meet the industry standard, that meet the government standards, and you can do all of this online. So I think we will see more and more of that. When COVID, as the pandemic goes, no pandemic has ever lasted forever, so it will go eventually. We will manage it,
mhm,
but I think also industry will manage how we go forward by using more technology. I think the whole vaccination passports
mhm,
will impact aviation.
mhm,
I think that it has to be government led, though. I don't think we can leave it up to the airlines to decide if you need a vaccination passport to travel on our line to another country. I
yep,
think the countries have to get involved and they have to do that through, I don't know if some of your listeners are aware, but ICAO is the International Civil Aviation Organization, and they're like the governing body of aviation.
mhm,
There's 193 countries are members of ICAO, the
mhm,
US, UK, France, Canada, etc. So they all have to get together and agree that if you're traveling on an aircraft, international travel,
mhm,
do you need a vaccination passport? Will you have to get a vaccination passport? Will you have to get something added to your passport to allow you to travel to these countries? So I can see that being a big discussion point moving forward.
mhm,
We in the UK we have a population of about 65 million. I think
mhm,
it was just on the news this evening that we're up to 22 million vaccinations now of the COVID vaccination jab. So that's roughly a third of our population now has been vaccinated against COVID.
mhm,
Now, are we going to let people in from other countries who have not even started their vaccination
mhm,
program yet? So again, and they could potentially bring in other strains of COVID. So that is going to impact on the
mhm,
aviation industry. So again, we need to be careful. I think a lot of people are thinking that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, I can see the light,
mhm.
but I think it might just take a little bit longer than what a lot of people think. And that's just a personal view. That's not. We all have opinions, as they say. And I know
Yeah.
someone that will be laughing at that statement if they listen to the show.
What do
Uh,
you suggest that travelers do when they're traveling to be safe and to be free of COVID and take care of themselves as well?
yeah, we'll touch on the security part of it. Yeah, keep your passport and your valuables with you at all time. Don't travel with large amounts of cash.
Mhm.
That's never a good idea anyway. But I know that in certain countries that cash is still king, and you do need to travel with US dollars, quite a lot of it.
Mhm.
But get one of these little money belts, wear it around your body. Don't put it in your bag and then put your bag into the overhead locker, because then when you go to the bathroom, the lavatory, then people can rummage through your bag. So keep your hand luggage to a minimum,
Mhm.
and keep your valuables with you, like I said. Sterilize, wear your mask. Only remove your mask when you're eating or drinking. Take your hand gel. A lot of airlines are giving you the little sterilization kits anyway when you do travel, but obviously take your own just in case you're going with an airline that doesn't supply that. But keep your mask on at
Mhm.
all times. Sterilize your hands, wash your hands regularly, and minimize your touch. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Just regardless of whether you're on an aircraft or in a supermarket, is try and minimize that touch of where you can potentially pick up the virus.
Yeah, yeah. I guess gloves and masks do wonders nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think cryptocurrency moving forward, I think, and blockchain, you really did open my mind to it. I think that could be another way that airlines can save money. It's a big thing on airlines saving money. It does cost a lot of money to put that aircraft in the air. So where they can save money, whether it be through cargo, paying by blockchain, getting payments through quicker,
Mhm.
people booking their seats, all of that will help the airline industry hopefully recover to pre-COVID.
There's a article that Air France is using enterprise blockchain with COVID. So that's pretty
Hmm.
cool.
Good, yeah, good initiative. Well done, Air France. Excellent, and more will follow.
Hmm.
That's what you always find in the airline industry. They just need that one that goes out, breaks down the boundaries. Others look at them and go, "Yeah, that works. That's a good
Yeah,
idea."
I think it's titled Air France to pilot ICC's blockchain COVID-19 credentials app. Yeah, for a 4-week pilot of a new health passport, the blockchain powered ICC AOK Pass starting March 11. So that sounds really, really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Good on them.
After COVID, do you think that we will go back to normal, or do you think that airline industry will go back to normal?
I think it will take time. There's a lot of airlines have grounded a lot of their older aircraft for good. They've put them out of service. British Airways, for instance, people like Virgin have just put their 747s out to pasture simply because it's just too expensive to run. It's an older aircraft. Again, when airlines are looking at saving money, things like that will be put on the back burner. There was an excellent interview with Sir Tim Clark from Emirates, and he was talking about how they're going to look at potentially smaller aircraft. That they will still continue to use the 380,
Mhm.
but on other selected routes where maybe passenger numbers are not as big because of it's taking our time to get out of this COVID slump, then they may look at utilising other aircraft, and they have a lot smaller aircraft on order that they could potentially use. And British Airways as well, using smaller aircraft on longer routes simply because the passenger numbers are just not there to
Mhm.
fill the bigger aircraft. And when the aircraft is not going full, then it's not making money. So they have to look at other ways, of saving money. And I think we'll see some airlines look at their service.
Mhm.
Already, I know of a lot of airlines that they are cutting down on their service. So instead of you getting the drink, the small bottle of wine, you'll get a glass of wine from a big bottle that can be resealed and
Mhm.
kept. So we're going to start to see a lot more things like that being utilized by the airlines. And some correctly, they're a business. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. It's a business at the end of the day, and they have to save money. So again, if they're not making money, then they won't be flying. And unfortunately, these aircraft not flying at the moment is costing airlines a lot of money
Mhm.
because they're being parked up, they're not moving, they're being charged. Some are leased from companies. That's costing them money. It will take time, but I think we'll get there. But it will be a slow upturn, unfortunately.
We spoke a little bit about security and how to protect ourselves. And during COVID, it seems like there may be still sex trafficking, there might be transportation or migration of drugs and narcotics. What do you think that will change later, though? Do you think it's going to go in the same way? Do you think that COVID will impact that? Do you think people will get smarter? Do you think people will continue to use PPP to transfer or transport drugs? How do you think that will
Yeah,
change? Do you think people will be more sophisticated?
yeah, they're already one step ahead, let's be honest. If we stop them somewhere, they're already looking at the next way. And there's a great saying in aviation security, the terrorist only has to be lucky once.
Hmm.
You know, we have to be lucky all the time. So they're already looking at new avenues. They're already looking at your blockchain and your cryptocurrency.
Hmm.
You know, the Super Bowl in the US was a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
That's the biggest single event for sex trafficking in the US.
Wow,
The
why?
Super, yeah, simply because there's a lot more men go to watch the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
and there's a need for females at wherever the Super Bowl is being held.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's a great program in the US called Airline Ambassadors,
Hmm.
and they have a really a great program for cabin crew, similar to the one that we had on Emirates, and how to spot potential victims of sex trafficking, human trafficking. So it's a really big thing in the US that they're trying to combat, and it always goes back to the Super Bowl as well, of being one of the biggest in the US for sex trafficking is the Super Bowl. So things like that will, listen, if they don't fly them in by air,
Hmm.
then they'll use the railway. You know, they'll hire a bus. So
Hmm.
there's always ways around it. Let's be
Yeah,
honest. Use the airlines because it's quicker.
yeah.
You can fly from one end of the states to the next in 5 hours. So that's why they use the airline industry. It's quick. It's reasonably priced.
Hmm.
So again, that's why they use it.
And then also the masks allow, like, you can't really tell people's age by the mask or their emotions that much nowadays, right? Because before,
Yeah,
you have cameras that you can see people's emotions and whatnot, and whether someone looks uncomfortable with an older person.
artificial intelligence will help, and there's already people out there who state that their technology can detect behavioral movements in the face. They
Mhm.
can get the person's age. I like it, but I don't think it's a one-way fix. I
Mhm.
believe that the operator on the ground, the cabin crew, the security guard, they're the last line of defence. They're also the first line of defence, depending on which way you look at the
Mhm.
arguments. I believe there is no better deterrent than the human body.
Mhm.
And I'm a big advocate of things like, well, we call it behavioural detection, but
Mhm.
probably in the States it gets a bad name when they call it profiling, but not racial profiling. See, there's a difference.
Mhm.
I'm talking about behavioral detection,
Mhm.
where you get that gut feeling that
Mhm.
something's not right. And what we're asking the security guard or the cabin crew is act on your gut feeling. Go and
Mhm.
tell someone. The US is great for it. If you see something, say something. And that's all we're really trying to get. We've all been there, haven't we? Walking through a dark alleyway at night or down a very poorly lit street, and you think, this doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
This is not good. Not saying that something will happen.
Mhm.
What we're saying is something could happen.
Mhm.
So investigate it more. And things like CCTV, artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
yes, use them. But I think there's a lot more work to go in to
Mhm.
how we can use them. So I'm still a great advocate of using that first, that human contact, which
Yeah.
we're not getting a lot of through COVID.
Mhm.
We're not getting that human contact because people are wearing masks.
Mhm.
People are already sweating because they are anxious about traveling because of things like COVID. So it's taking a little bit away from that behavioral detection, but it's still there. You still have that chance where if you see something, say something.
Mhm. The number one threat to aviation security is insider. The
Yeah,
theory,
insider
I
threat.
remember what I learned.
You did pay attention. Well done.
I did. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like in every industry, the number one threat is usually the insider. I mean, if your house has been broken into, the police always ask about your relatives and family first, or friends, or even your
Yeah,
significant other. Yeah.
yeah. The aviation industry is no different from any other industry. From the insider threat, it's from that guy, that baggage handler, who's
Hmm.
been working in the airport for 10 years, who
Yeah.
goes through the security gate every morning and says, "Hi, John. How, Joe? Hey, how's things?" And Joe gets to know him and stops searching him with the same thoroughness that he should be searching him.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the baggage handler has just been biding his time, or maybe he's fallen on hard times. There's a little bit of debt, we can't pay his mortgage, and he's got the chance to take what he thinks is 5 kilos of cocaine through.
Hmm.
And that's what I keep telling people, and they go, "Oh, but yeah, but it's only drugs, or it's gold bars, or whatever." Yeah,
Hmm.
but the terrorist knows this, and the terrorist will keep doing it and keep doing it, and then one time he swaps the 5 kilo of cocaine for 5 kilo of high explosives,
Hmm.
and the high explosives ends up on the aircraft, and it
Hmm.
detonates 3 hours into the flight and kills 450 people.
Hmm.
So you've got to look at the bigger picture. And the insider threat is still one of the most scary threats, I personally think, within the aviation environment. And because it's one of the most difficult ones to detect,
Yeah.
because that person is building up layers and layers and layers of trust and knowledge of how to get something on to that aircraft. One of the biggest threats.
Yeah, it's almost like deliberation plus social engineering, and they're in the industry at the same time. So it's super hard. In the blockchain industry and crypto industry, there's a lot of fraud as well. And the same thing happens because there's an insider that basically knows the information and they can breach more easily, and they develop trust over time. And that's a
Yeah.
scary part because like you have a relationship with them, you know them, yet you don't know them.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. Yeah, the insider threat on things like fraud, ticket fraud, and people who work in ticket offices selling tickets to other people. Airlines have been subject to that for many, many years, and it's not really changed since we have got more electronic as well.
Mhm.
You tend not to get a paper ticket now like you would 20 years ago,
Yeah.
but there's still that chance of that ticket being duplicated, being sold on for a more expensive. So yeah, still happening, and it comes back to the insider threat.
And is there anything else you wanted to share or talk about that I have not asked you?
Well, if we're about finishing, I would only say that it will recover. I think it will take its time, like I did say earlier. I see green shoots of recovery with vaccinations. I think to kind of recap, I think the vaccination passports really has to be led by the government. I believe the security industry, particularly the aviation industry, we should talk more.
Mhm.
We should share more information. It's difficult now because of things like GDPR, where you cannot share people's personal details and stuff. But when I think it comes down to terrorism,
Mhm.
aviation security, then
Mhm.
I believe we should be more open about sharing some of that information,
Mhm.
sharing industry best practice. I've been
Mhm.
to so many airports around the world, and I maybe get into a conversation with a guy, and I say, "Why don't you use this machine?" And they'll say, "What machine?" And I say,
Yeah.
"Well, the new machine that's out. You don't know anything about it?" "No." "Oh, well, they're using it in that airport. Why
Mhm.
do you not use it?" "No one told us." That old, chestnut. And a lot of times it's down to money. Let's not kid ourselves here. It's down to money, and does that airport want to spend that money? Does that airline want to spend that money when they've got a perfectly good machine that's working at the moment? So we'll wait till something happens. And that's always been my big fear with aviation, is they always are more reactive rather
Mhm.
than being proactive, because being proactive, it costs money. So you tend to see that a lot more airports, airlines are a lot on the reactive side of things when it comes to spending money, unfortunately, because that impacts on your ticket price.
Mhm.
But I see green shoots. It's not all doom and gloom. We will recover, but I just think it will take time.
What is your next adventure?
My next venture, get me on your radio show in 6 months and I'll tell you. How's that?
Okay, I will. For sure. I'm part of the airplane or aviation family, and it is super awesome. I love it.
Listen, I want to get on a flight today and go somewhere. So that's how it's made me feel. It's been fantastic reminiscing with you. That's for sure.
Yeah, me too. I actually do want to fly somewhere. It's amazing. And then what is one piece of advice that you have for the community?
Oh, advice.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice to your security guard the next time you get on an aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
because they are doing a really important job. Sometimes a thankless task.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of places in the world on very low money.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming from a personal advice, but please be nice to them. They're
Yeah.
only doing their job.
Yeah, and I think they're amazing because after going to the conference on aviation security, I think I appreciate everyone at the airport a lot more. All the cameras and the
Yeah.
people checking luggages, because
Mhm.
then you get educated on all the bombs and all the drugs and even people that look suspicious because they could basically put stuff in their body. I hate taking off my shoes every time I go to the airport. However, we were trained because there is a case where a
There
shoe,
is.
yes, yes.
And I'll give you extra points if you can tell me his name.
Oh my god, seriously.
No? Okay then. It was Richard Reed. Richard Reed, or otherwise known as the Shoe Bomber. There
Yeah,
you
the
go.
shoe bomber. Okay, if you wanted the shoe bomber, I would have gotten it, but I didn't remember the exact name. But
I thought you.
that was an awesome case. I've been thinking about it, and I was such a nerd. I totally geeked out on everything.
Quite right. It's an interesting subject. As I said, there's not too many incidents have happened, so they tend to regurgitate, some of the same kind of similar cases. But yeah, we've got some famous ones like Lockerbie, 9/11, Shoe Bomber, Underpants Bomber. So there is a few out there. So if you are interested in it, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm kind of like Michelle, very active on LinkedIn. So please do get in touch with me, and I'm happy to share with you any knowledge that I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Michelle. Nice to speak to
Bye.
you.
Bye.